Hello and welcome back to the 13th installment of Reconciling Zero as we go in search of Effective Zen. The question we posed last episode was, are there characteristics common to all teaching frameworks? Recall that as part of our quest to answer the question, is this Zen Mountain? We are examining the notion of zero-buddhism, the conditions necessary for the activity of Buddhism to arise. Previously, we identified three such conditions. First, we need a clear picture of the highest good, namely the realization of infinite mind. Second, we need a clear picture of the path to the realization of infinite mind. Last, we need an understanding of the obstacles expected along this path. And currently, we are examining the second of these conditions, a clear picture of the path to the realization of infinite mind. Recall the Buddha's quote from his first discourse, quote, "I awaken to the middle way, which gives rise to vision, which gives rise to knowledge, which leads to equanimity, to direct knowledge, to self-awakening, to unbinding," end quote. Last episode, we paused and investigated the notion of stillness as a characteristic of activity. That what we call stillness represents not an absence of activity, but rather activity that is unfettered. We also introduced the notion of a framework, which we defined as the often unique instructional device employed by one's teacher. We observed that the Buddha used the framework of suffering, the Zen master Joshu Sasaki used the framework of clarity, and Thich Nhat Hanh used joy. Others have spoken of reality, creativity, compassion, fear, etc. And assuming that each of these frameworks is necessary for progress along a particular path, we should want to know the commonalities that make them effective in teaching Buddhism in general and Zen in particular. So it seems that there are three characteristics that comprise an effective framework. First, the framework must be inherently dualistic. That is, it must have only two fundamental states. Consider those that we previously mentioned. First, for the Buddha, there is suffering and not suffering. For Sasaki, there is perfectly clear and not so clear. For others, there is joy and sadness, fear and fearlessness, etc. Second, one of the two states must be universally preferred, that everyone would choose not suffering, clarity, joy, fearlessness, etc. That there is no ambiguity about the two states. Last, this universally preferred state can be asserted. That is, we can learn and choose to end suffering. We can learn and choose to be perfectly clear. We can learn and choose to be joyful, fearless, creative, compassionate, etc. So, what would not be a framework? How about something like feeling good? First, it is not inherently dualistic. At any time we may feel good, great, so-so, not so good, downright terrible, etc. And while we may prefer to feel great, can we really learn and choose to feel great? That is, while we may be able to lift our spirits, simply deciding to feel great is another thing entirely. Now please realize that while we have investigated the what of these frameworks, we have not investigated the why. That is, so far we have just assumed that a framework is necessary, but have not shown that one is in fact necessary. This will become clear in future videos when, as the Buddha states, our vision progresses toward a purified knowledge. But armed with this understanding of frameworks and the notion of a universally preferred state, we can better assess the multitude of instructional approaches that we come across. That while not all teachings center on suffering, they must center on something. And through our understanding of frameworks, we can now evaluate that something. Finally, with our understanding of both stillness and frameworks, we're ready to return to the second half of the Buddha's quote and address the four gates he identified. So for the next episode, we pose the question, what do we make of the Buddha's gates? Equanimity, direct knowledge, self-awakening, and unbinding. And until next episode, cheers!